What's going on, Alabama fans? Chris Daughtery here. This is the Alabama Football Report. Alabama and Kalen DeBoer have done a phenomenal job here in the month of June on the recruiting trail, but none of that will really matter unless those results translate on the field. So I want to hear from you guys up here in the comment section. Predict Alabama's record in 2024. How did the Tide finish here in this 2024 season? Let me know in the comment section right now. Coming up on today's show, I want to just talk about the job that Kalen DeBoer has done so far while he's been at Alabama over the last, 5 months or so that he's been on campus in Tuscaloosa doing the job. I think for the most part, you got to give this guy an A. You can give him maybe an A- or something like that if you feel like that, but he has done everything correctly, in my opinion, so far coming into this Alabama job and taking over for the GOAT in Nick Saban. The first thing that I want to bring up that I think is very, very notable that Kalen DeBoer did was he was able to retain both Freddy Roach and Robert Gillespie. I think both the running back room and the defensive line room are two of the best rooms on this Alabama roster. You got Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, some very talented freshmen as well in that running back room. Then you got Jaheim Otis, Tim Keenan. They brought in LT Overton. I think both of these rooms are going to be some of the focal points on both the offense and defensive side of the ball for Alabama. And being able to retain both Freddy Roach and Robert Gillespie, I think helped in that transition because they were two of the top coaches on this Alabama staff during Nick Saban's final year, at least at Alabama. And I think it's a massive, get for them to retain them on the staff. Because you look at the DB room and, you had Coach T-Rob there, and a lot of people love Coach T-Rob. I'm, in that boat as well. I liked him. He was a great recruiter. I think he did a very good job on the field coaching as well. But after he left, after Coach Sabin left, the DB room took a big hit. I think that number was 11, 12 guys, something like that, transferred out of the defensive back room after Nick Saban retired, after T-Rob left. You had some guys like, say, maybe a Tony Mitchell as well, and a Caleb Downs especially, that, after T-Rob left, he might have been the guy for them that was possibly going to, keep them at Alabama. So I think one of the biggest things that Kalen DeBoer did in the transfer portal was able to bring in 5 big-time, not necessarily big-time, but 5 good names to fill out this defensive back room. Here are the transfers in that defensive back room. Damani Jackson obviously came in, committed to Alabama while they were still out there in California getting ready for the Rose Bowl. So that was really more of a Nick Saban thing, but Damani Jackson, a really big name. We'll still see, he didn't have the best season at USC. Hopefully he can come over here to Alabama and really get it going, a former 5-star. And then you've got a guy like Keon Sabb coming in at that safety position from Michigan. He was safety 3 for them, but he played some big-time snaps for them. And then you've got Deshaun Jones, King Mack, Cameron Howard also coming in this defensive back room. I think Deshaun Jones probably going to get a pretty decent start or a chance to start at that cornerback position. King Mack, Cameron Howard, also big-time guys that Alabama believes that they can come in here, not necessarily maybe this year play, but, they'll be able to fill a spot, just in case somebody goes down. So I want you to get in the comments right now, grade Kalen DeBoer's first 5 months on the job as Alabama's new head coach. It is the pinned comment on today's video, so if that ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Go down there in the comments and reply to that pinned comment. Grade Kalen DeBoer's first 5 months on the job. Grade it A, B, C, D, or F right now in the comment section. I think the next big thing that Kalen DeBoer did was he brought in some head coaches to be on this staff as well. You got Kane Womack coming in as the defensive coordinator for Alabama, the former head coach of South Alabama. And then you also have Maurice Linguist coming in as the DB's coach and the co-defensive coordinator as well. he was the head coach on that Buffalo staff. And I think a lot of things that people have said were, Kane Womack and Maurice Linguist didn't really have good stints as head coaches. And what I say to that is what makes a good head coach does not necessarily make a good position coach or a coordinator. Just because you're a good coordinator or a position coach does not make you a good head coach. I think both of these guys, both on the field and on the recruiting trail, but especially on the recruiting trail, have been big for Alabama. I think it's only a matter of time before we see what happens, how these guys on the field are going to be able to, learn the new system and, just it be able to translate in a positive way for Alabama, especially, both these guys being defensive coaches on the defensive side of the ball. Some of the other top assistants that Kalen DeBoer brought in as well. Coach Kapilovich, offensive line coach, coming in from Baylor. He's got a lot of praise on the recruiting trail. He's brought in a lot of really good recruits for Alabama. As we've talked about plenty, Alabama's got 4, pretty big recruits and on that offensive line, as well as, Ty Haywood also predicted to Alabama on that offensive line. And if you compare what he's done to, say, what Ohio State has done on that offensive line, Alabama's stolen a couple guys from Ohio State. So I really like what Coach Cap has brought in. Jamarcus Shepard, we don't really need to talk about him much. He's a phenomenal wide receivers coach. You saw what Washington was able to do last year with those wide receivers, putting those guys into the league. Nick Sheridan, there's a lot of, differences when it comes to what a lot of Alabama fans expect from Nick Sheridan as the offensive coordinator from Alabama. I think he's going to do a fine job. I think he's going to be an upgrade, especially from Tommy Rees last year, especially with this Kalen DeBoer offense that he's bringing in. And then Christian Robinson, the outside linebackers coach, also coming over from Baylor, has gotten a lot of praise from recruits on the recruiting trail. And then you can't talk about the assistants without talking about Courtney Morgan, the GM, coming in as well with Kalen DeBoer. He's the guy that sets everything in motion. He finds a lot of these recruits that I keep talking about are diamonds in the rough, as well as those big-name recruits as well. He's done a good job with the parents as well on these official visits. Just a lot of positivity coming from this Alabama coaching staff. Kalen DeBoer, I think one of the biggest things that he did early on, taking over for Nick Saban, was he was able to land Ryan Williams right out of the gate. Obviously, Ryan Williams, he was committed to Alabama, but there was a lot of buzz, whether or not you believed it or not, about some other schools, whether that be like a Texas A&M or even an Auburn. There was a lot of Auburn fans thinking that they were going to get Ryan Williams in this 2024 class, but it ended up not happening. He lands Ryan Williams, 5-star recruit. Obviously, he reclassified to this 2024 class, originally a 2025 guy, number 4 overall recruit in this class, the number 3 wide receiver and the number 2 player from the state of Alabama. Again, getting a massive in-state guy is a really, really big deal, I think, for Kalen DeBoer. And you look at what Ryan Williams did in high school, absolutely insane. High school kids aren't supposed to do this, especially in their sophomore and junior seasons. He didn't even have a senior season in high school. As a sophomore, putting up over 1,600 yards just receiving yards, another 700 yards on the ground, and 39 total touchdowns in one season is just absolutely ridiculous. And then last year, 72 receptions, 1,300 receiving yards. He did a little bit less on the ground, but still 26 total touchdowns. And I look to see maybe where he can translate, to this Kalen DeBoer offense. I think he's going to be able to line up anywhere. He can line up in the slot. He can line up outside. And I also am very excited to see maybe they get him involved in like the jet sweep game or something like that. He's a very fast kid, and I think, just him being able to come across the formation, get the ball, he's going to be able to outrun those linebackers getting around the edge. I think he can be very dangerous for Alabama in his freshman year. He just partnered up with Justin Haynes. They did a camp together at Hillcrest High School. This is what Justice Haynes had to say about Ryan Williams and him coming in during the summertime for Alabama. He said, "It shows that he's a leader, that people look up to him. He's adaptable. He came from high school and jumped right into college, and he's doing fine. He's doing more than fine. He's putting in the extra work and putting in that grind. It's crazy to think he should be a senior in high school with the catches that he makes out there in the 7-on-7 that they run during the player-led 7-on-7 and the player-led practices that he's doing. He's doing special things, and he's going to do really great things at Alabama." Now, Ryan Williams, despite just the pure talent that this kid has, he has done a phenomenal job helping Alabama, especially, and Kalen DeBoer on the recruiting trail so far. You see every single, over the past 3 weeks, almost every single big-name target, Ryan Williams is getting in on those pictures, getting in on the fun. He's hosting a lot of those guys. You know, you saw with Micah DeBose the other day, Ryan Williams is the guy that brought him up on stage on his Instagram Live to commit to Alabama. So both on the field talent is phenomenal for Ryan Williams, but he has been a massive part in this past 3 weeks for Alabama on the recruiting trail, getting in some of those big-time names in this 2025 class. And I think he's going to be, one of those guys that helps Alabama land a lot of recruits, not just this year, but next year and hopefully the next as well for Alabama. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. We're coming up on 18,000 subscribers here. We got a lot of subscribers on yesterday's video, so we really appreciate that from you guys. We're 136 subscribers away from that 18,000 subscriber mark, so make sure you guys are subscribed right here. We've got a ton of content coming up for you guys, as well as those watch parties that I'm super, super excited about during the season. Now, Kalen DeBoer, one of the biggest things that people talked about his hiring, replacing Nick Saban, was, is he going to be able to come in here and recruit at the same level or maybe even, a little bit under that Nick Saban level? But a lot of people said that he wasn't going to be able to come in and recruit the South. You don't have all the connections from these coaches in the South, and people don't know you. Well, it hasn't really paid off that way for some of those people that had those thoughts. He has quickly come in here and brought Alabama from outside the top 25 in this 2025 class to now the number 2 overall recruiting class in 2025. We'll talk a little bit more about that recruiting angle, but first, we want to give a shout out to Fanatics, our friends there. They've got Alabama jerseys for you guys up to 30% off. Just go to chatsports.com/Alabama jerseys. You can get custom jerseys. You can get alumni jerseys. You can get jerseys from guys that are currently on this team right now. You can get up to 30% off right now. I think they're like $40 off in total right now. So go to chatsports.com/Alabama jersey. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. And there will also be a clickable link right over there in the corner that you guys can click on. One more time, that's chatsports.com/Alabama jerseys. This is where the 247 Sports Composite Rankings sit right now for Alabama in the 2025 class. Ohio State at 1 and Alabama all the way up there at number 2. Notre Dame at 3 and the Auburn Tigers even up there at that number 4 spot. Georgia at number 5. Clemson at 6. Oklahoma at 7. LSU at 8. Rutgers. One of these teams are not like the rest. They are sitting there at number 9. And then Texas A&M rounding out the top 10 at that number 10 spot. So where do you guys think Alabama will finish in these 2025 recruiting rankings? They're sitting at number 2 right now, but there is a long way to go until December rolls around for that early signing window. And just because guys are committed does not mean they're going to stay committed. Alabama still has to stay, on them about their commitments and, stay in their, top tier, because there's a lot of these other schools that are still going to be recruiting your commits right now. So where do you think Alabama will finish in the 2025 recruiting rankings? Some of the other top recruits that Alabama is in really, really good shape for here in the 2025 class. Ty Haywood. So I'll just go ahead and preface this. Everybody that's on the left has gotten official predictions to commit to Alabama from either On3 or 247 Sports. Ty Haywood, the number 2 offensive tackle. Dawson Merritt, the number 11 linebacker. Dejon Lee, another 5-star corner in this class. Caleb Cunningham, he's kind of said everybody has been his number 1, but, he says Alabama is his number 1 now after this visit. So take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but you'd like to get the number 2 wide receiver. Justice Terry also, pumping the brakes a little bit on the Georgia predictions after he decommitted from USC. And then Derek Meadows and Khalil Lockett also telling On3 that Alabama is up there in their top, couple schools, and as well as Ty Jackson. 247 Sports has him as the number 11 linebacker. On3 has him as the number 1 linebacker. So a little bit of discrepancy there for the recruiting rankings, but another big-time name for Alabama. And another reason Alabama's just on top of things right now is when you've got Auburn fans, tweeting about the fact that they think Nick Saban is still the one recruiting at Alabama, and it's not Kalen DeBoer. Babysitter Barry right here, the last couple of days on Twitter, he is an Auburn fan. He's just on this, I don't know if he's trolling or being serious, but he seems to think Nick Saban is still there recruiting for Alabama, saying, you have an office is not the same as retiring as the coach and being the recruiter in place of the head coach. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But you're still on top of the game when Auburn, sitting there at that number 4 spot in the recruiting rankings is still talking about the Crimson Tide. So a fun little conversation that's been going around social media that I wanted to ask you guys about. Who wins a national championship first at Alabama? Type D if you think Kalen DeBoer, or type O if you think Nate Oats basketball will win a national championship first at Alabama. Let me know right now in the comments section.